The twin suns of Rust Haven were setting behind the jagged mountains when Marcus Webb finally locked the door to his repair shop. His hands were still stained with grease from fixing old mining equipment all day. The small colony world where he lived was quiet tonight, just the way he liked it. Most people had already gone home, and the dusty streets were empty except for a few automated cargo haulers moving supplies. Marcus was walking toward his small apartment when he heard it. A sound like thunder, but wrong. It came from the wasteland beyond the colony's protective fence. The ground shook beneath his feet, and he saw a flash of blue light streak across the darkening sky before something massive crashed into the desert about 2 miles out. He stopped walking and stared at the dust cloud rising in the distance. His first thought was that a cargo ship had crashed, which meant people might need help. His second thought was that the wasteland was dangerous at night, filled with creatures that could tear through a pressure suit. The smart thing would be to call colony security and let them handle it. Marcus looked at his toolkit, still slung over his shoulder. He looked at the colony security office, dark and probably empty since a single guard on duty was likely asleep. He cursed under his breath, grabbed his emergency medkit from his workshop, and headed for his old ground vehicle. The drive out to the crash site took 20 minutes over rough terrain. His vehicle's headlights cut through the settling dust, and Marcus kept his comlink open in case he needed to call for help. As he got closer, he noticed something strange. There was no debris field like he would expect from a ship crash. No scattered metal or burning fuel. Just a massive crater, and something large lying in the center of it. Marcus parked at the crater's edge and climbed out, his boots crunching on the rocky ground. He grabbed a portable light and shined it down into the hole. What he saw made him freeze. It was alive, and it was definitely not human. The creature was enormous, easily the size of a small transport ship. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered with faint bioluminescent patterns, shifting from deep purple to blue even as Marcus watched. It had 4 legs, a long serpentine neck, and wings. Massive wings with membranes stretched between bone-like structures. One of those wings was bent at a horrible angle, torn and bleeding a strange silver-colored fluid that glowed faintly in the darkness. Marcus had heard stories about the Draconids. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were one of the oldest and most powerful species, ruling vast empires among the stars. But they rarely came to human worlds, especially not backwater colonies like Rusthaven. They consider humans too primitive, too young as a spacefaring race to bother with, and now one of them was dying in front of him. The dragon's eye opened slightly, a brilliant golden color that fixed on Marcus. He felt something press against his mind, not words exactly, but feelings. Pain, confusion, fear. The creature was trying to communicate with him, but Marcus had no telepathic abilities. He could only guess at what it needed. "Okay," Marcus said quietly, more to calm himself than anything. "Okay, let me think." He slid down into the crater, approaching carefully. The dragon watched him but didn't move. It was probably too weak to be dangerous, Marcus reasoned, though one swipe from those claws would kill him instantly. He set down his toolkit and medical supplies, then walked slowly around the creature, assessing the damage like he would with any broken machine. The wing was the worst injury. The membrane was ripped in 3 places, and one of the support bones was fractured. Silver blood pooled beneath it, still warm and glowing. Marcus had never worked on living tissue before, but he understood structures and stress points. A wing was like a solar sail on a ship, he told himself. It needed to catch air and distribute force evenly. He opened his toolkit and got to work. First, he cleaned the wounds as best he could with sanitizing solution meant for equipment, hoping it wouldn't harm the creature. The dragon flinched but didn't pull away. Marcus used metallic bonding compound, the kind meant for sealing hull breaches, to close the tears in the membrane. It probably wasn't ideal for living tissue, but it was flexible and strong. For the fractured bone, Marcus created a splint using carbon fiber rods from his emergency supplies, wrapping them carefully and securing everything with medical tape. His hands worked automatically, the same way they did when he repaired delicate sensor arrays or patched radiation shields. Hours passed. The night grew colder, and Marcus's portable light was the only illumination in the wasteland. Finally, He stepped back and examined his work. It wasn't pretty, but the wing was stabilized and the bleeding had stopped. The dragon's breathing was steadier now, deeper and more regular. Marcus sat down heavily on a rock, suddenly exhausted. He should go back to the colony, he thought. But something made him stay. Maybe it was knowing the creature was alone and vulnerable. Maybe it was simple curiosity. He pulled out a thermal blanket meant for emergencies and wrapped it around himself, then settled in to wait. The dragon's golden eye watched him for a long moment before slowly closing. As the first sun began to rise, painting the wasteland in shades of orange and red, the dragon's eyes opened again. This time, there was something different in that golden gaze. Intelligence, understanding, and perhaps, Marcus thought, gratitude. The dragon stirred as morning light filled the crater. Marcus had dozed off sitting against a rock, and he jerked awake when he felt that strange pressure in his mind again. This time it was stronger, more focused. Images flashed behind his eyes. He saw stars he didn't recognize, massive buildings made of crystal and metal, and symbols that meant nothing to him. The dragon was definitely trying to tell him something important. Marcus rubbed his face and stood up, his back aching from sleeping on rocks. "I'm sorry," he said to the creature. "I don't understand what you're trying to say." The dragon made a sound, somewhere between a growl and a sigh. It shifted its body carefully, testing the repaired wing. Marcus watched nervously, hoping his makeshift repair would hold. The wing trembled but stayed together. The dragon seemed surprised, turning its long neck to look at the patched membrane more closely. "Yeah, it's not pretty," Marcus said, "but it should keep you stable until you heal properly. You need to rest for a few more days at least." He had no idea if the dragon understood his words, but it settled back down, which Marcus took as a good sign. The problem now was keeping the secret. A creature this size wouldn't stay hidden for long, and if the colony authorities found out, they would panic. Or worse, they might try to capture the dragon for study or profit. Marcus drove back to the colony, his mind racing. He stopped at the general store and bought extra water containers, dried protein packs, and medical supplies. The store owner, an older woman named Chun, gave him a curious look. "Planning a camping trip, Marcus?" she asked. "Just restocking my emergency supplies." He lied smoothly. "You know how it is out here. Never know when you'll need extra." Over the next 3 days, Marcus fell into a routine. He would work in his shop during the day, fixing whatever equipment the miners brought him. Then, as evening came, he would load his vehicle with supplies and drive out to the crater. He started calling the dragon Ember in his mind because of the way its scales glowed like dying coals in the darkness. Ember seemed to heal faster than Marcus expected. The silver blood stopped flowing, and the tears in the wing membrane began to close on their own. The dragon watched Marcus carefully each time he visited, those golden eyes following his every movement. Sometimes Marcus would talk while he worked, checking the wing or bringing food and water. He talked about his day, about the colony, about anything that came to mind. It felt less lonely that way. On the 4th night, something changed. Marcus brought a scanner he had modified, hoping to check if there were any internal injuries he had missed. As he activated it, the device beeped and displayed strange readings. Ember suddenly became alert, staring at the scanner with interest. The dragon reached out with one clawed hand, moving slowly and carefully. It touched the scanner's display screen and, to Marcus's amazement, began tapping buttons. Within seconds, the device's functions had been completely rearranged. Text appeared on the screen, but it was in a language Marcus couldn't read. "You understand technology," Marcus said, excited now. "Okay, we can work with this." He grabbed his data pad from his toolkit and held it out. Ember took it gently, those massive claws somehow delicate enough not to crush the small device. The dragon worked quickly, installing something Marcus didn't recognize. When Ember handed it back, new software was running on the screen. Marcus watched as symbols appeared, then slowly began to shift and change. The pad was learning. He realized it was comparing the dragon's language with standard human languages it had stored. The process was rough and would take time, but it was progress. Through broken translations, Marcus learned fragments of Ember's story. The dragon had been running from enemies. Bad dragons, the pad translated, though Marcus suspected the actual meaning was more complex. Ember had been hurt while trying to escape and had crashed here by accident. What worried Marcus more was what happened next. On the 5th day, while he was working in his shop, he heard the sound of ships entering the atmosphere. He walked outside and looked up to see 3 vessels descending. They were unlike any human ships he had seen before. The hulls were smooth and organic-looking, like they had been grown rather than built. They landed near the colony's main administration building. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He knew what those ships were. Draconid vessels. Within an hour, the entire colony was talking about the visitors. Marcus kept his head down and listened. The dragons who had landed were warriors, heavily armed and clearly searching for something. They went door to door, asking questions. Had anyone seen another dragon? Had anyone noticed unusual energy signatures or crashes in the wasteland? Most colonists said no, too intimidated to say much of anything. These warriors weren't friendly or diplomatic. They spoke to humans like they were annoying insects, barely worth their time. They described the dragon they were hunting as a traitor, an enemy of their people who deserved to be captured and punished. Marcus watched from his shop window as the warriors interrogated Chun at her store. She shook her head, clearly frightened. The lead warrior, a scarred dragon with dark red scales, looked unsatisfied. He announced loudly that they would be conducting sensor sweeps of the surrounding area. Anyone who was hiding information would be considered an accomplice. That night, Marcus didn't go straight to the crater. He waited until the colony was quiet, watching the warriors' ship. They had set up camp and were running equipment, scanning for thermal and energy signatures. It was only a matter of time before they found Ember. He finally drove out after midnight, taking a longer route to avoid their sensors. When he reached the crater, Ember was already awake and agitated. The dragon had sensed the other draconids, Marcus realized. Through the data pads improving translation, one message came through clearly. Danger. They want kill. Must go. Marcus looked at the wing he had repaired. It was better, much better than it had been. But was it strong enough for flight? He wasn't sure, and neither was Ember. The dragon tried to spread both wings, wincing with pain. The repaired one held, but it was clearly still weak. We need more time, Marcus said firmly. If you try to fly now and that wing fails, you'll crash again, and this time you might not survive. Ember's golden eyes met his, and Marcus felt a wave of desperation through their fragile mental connection. The dragon didn't have more time. The hunters were close, and they were determined. Marcus made a decision then. If Ember couldn't fly yet, then they would have to hide somewhere better. Somewhere the warriors wouldn't think to look. He knew just the place. The old mining tunnels ran for miles beneath the wasteland. Marcus had explored them years ago when he first arrived on Rusthaven, mapping the safe passages and marking the unstable ones. Now those maps might save Ember's life. Getting a dragon the size of a transport ship into the tunnels was not easy. Ember could walk, but moving quickly was painful. Marcus drove ahead in his vehicle, lights illuminating the entrance to the nearest tunnel. The dragon followed on foot, limping slightly and keeping the injured wing folded tight against its body. They made it inside just as the first sun rose. Marcus had timed it perfectly. The warriors would be starting their search sweeps at dawn, and the tunnel entrance was hidden behind a collapsed mining structure. Unless someone knew exactly where to look, they would miss it. The tunnel was wide enough for Ember to move through, though the dragon had to crouch. Marcus led the way deeper into the darkness, using his portable light to guide them. Behind him, he could hear Ember's claws scraping on stone and the creature's heavy breathing echoing off the walls. They traveled for almost an hour before Marcus found what he was looking for, a large chamber where 3 tunnels met, with enough space for Ember to rest comfortably. There was even a small underground stream running through one corner, which meant fresh water. This will work, Marcus said, setting down his supplies. We can stay here until your wing is stronger. Ember settled onto the ground with a grateful rumble. The dragon scales had stopped glowing, Marcus noticed. Maybe it was a way to conserve energy, or perhaps Ember was trying to stay hidden even here in the darkness. Marcus was setting up a portable heater when his comlink crackled to life. It was Chun from the general store, her voice urgent and frightened. "Marcus, where are you? Those dragon warriors are tearing the colony apart. They're demanding to search everyone's property. They came to my store and broke half my inventory looking for evidence. I'm out checking some mining equipment." Marcus lied. "What do they want?" "They say the traitor they're hunting was spotted in this sector. They're offering a huge reward for information." "Marcus, they're not nice about asking questions. People are scared." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. He looked at Ember, who was listening quietly. Through their mental connection, he felt the dragon's sadness and shame. Ember didn't want innocent people suffering because of the situation. "I'll be back soon," Marcus told Chin. "Tell people to cooperate, but don't volunteer extra information. These warriors will leave once they don't find what they're looking for." He hoped that was true. Marcus left Ember with enough supplies for 2 days and returned to the colony. What he found made his blood boil. The warriors had set up a command post in the colony square. They had forced everyone to gather while they conducted searches. Homes and businesses were being ransacked. One warrior was using a scanning device on colonists, checking them one by one for any trace of contact with the fugitive dragon. The lead warrior, the one with dark red scales and a scarred face, stood on a platform addressing the crowd. His voice was harsh and filled with contempt. "You humans are harboring a criminal," he announced. "Emperor Scartherax has betrayed the Dracona Imperium and must be brought to justice. Anyone who helps this traitor will be punished severely. Anyone who provides information will be rewarded with enough credits to leave this miserable dust ball forever." Marcus froze. Emperor? Ember was an emperor? Suddenly everything made sense. The desperate escape, the assassins instead of regular law enforcement, the lengths they were going to find Ember. This wasn't about justice. This was a political assassination. The scanning continued. Marcus watched as a warrior with the device moved through the crowd, checking each person. The machine would beep green for clear, red for suspicious. So far, everyone had been green. But Marcus had spent days in close contact with Ember. He had the dragon's blood on his clothes, scales caught in his toolkit. If they scanned him, the device would definitely show red. He started backing away slowly, trying to reach the edge of the crowd. But another warrior spotted the movement and pointed directly at him. "You there. Stop moving. Come forward for scanning." Every eye in the colony turned to look at Marcus. His heart pounded. If they caught him, they would make him talk. They would find Ember. The Emperor would die, and probably Marcus and anyone else who would help would die too. Marcus did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He sprinted between buildings, hearing shouts and the sound of heavy footsteps behind him. The warriors were fast, much faster than he expected. Marcus ducked into an alley, then through a gap in the colony fence that he knew about, but most people didn't. He reached his vehicle and gunned the engine, heading straight for the wasteland. The warriors couldn't follow in his ground vehicle, but they didn't need to. He saw one of their ships lift off, moving to intercept him. Its weapon systems powered up, and Marcus knew he wouldn't make it to the tunnels in time. A blast struck the ground beside his vehicle, flipping it sideways. Marcus was thrown clear, rolling across the rocky terrain. He tasted blood and felt his ribs screaming with pain. The warrior ship landed nearby, and the red-scaled leader stepped out, walking slowly toward him. "Foolish human," the warrior said. "You have been in contact with the traitor. I can smell his essence on you. Tell me where Scartherax is hiding, and I will make your death quick." Marcus struggled to his feet, every movement agony. He said nothing. The warrior raised a clawed hand, energy crackling around it. "Last chance." The ground beneath them suddenly shook. Rocks tumbled down from the nearby cliffs. The warrior looked around, confused. Then Marcus saw it. Ember, emerging from a tunnel entrance Marcus hadn't even known was there. The Emperor's scales were glowing bright now, pulsing with power and rage. The injured wing was still weak, but Ember's presence was terrifying. The dragon stood at full height, towering over the warrior and his ship. When Ember spoke, Marcus heard it both out loud and in his mind. The voice was deep and ancient, filled with authority that could not be denied. You dare threaten one under my protection? You dare hunt your rightful emperor on false charges? I am Scartherax, and I name you traitor, not I. The warrior's confident expression crumbled. He stepped back, suddenly uncertain. Behind him, his ship's weapons powered down. Even the other warriors, watching from the colony, seemed frozen. Ember had revealed himself to save Marcus's life. Now there was no going back. The truth was out, and whatever happened next would determine the fate of everyone on Rusthaven. The red-scaled warrior recovered quickly from his shock. His expression twisted into a snarl, and he raised his weapon toward Ember. But before he could fire, Marcus grabbed a piece of debris from his crashed vehicle and threw it. The rock struck the warrior's arm, spoiling his aim. The energy blast went wild, hitting the ground instead. Ember moved with surprising speed, despite the injured wing. The Emperor's tail whipped around, knocking the warrior off his feet and sent him tumbling across the rocks. Marcus didn't wait to see more. He ran toward Ember, and the dragon lowered its head, allowing Marcus to climb onto its neck. Then Ember turned and retreated back toward the tunnels, moving as fast as the damaged wing would allow. Behind them, Marcus heard the warrior screaming orders into his communication device. More ships would come. Many more. They had minutes at best. Back in the colony, chaos erupted. The other warriors began mobilizing, calling for reinforcements. But some of the colonists had seen what happened. They had heard Ember declare himself emperor and name the warriors as traitors. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd. Marcus and Ember made it back to the tunnel system, but they both knew they couldn't hide anymore. The warriors would collapse every tunnel if they had to. They would destroy the entire area to complete their mission. We need to make a stand, Marcus said, sliding off Ember's neck. His ribs hurt badly, but he pushed the pain aside. If we're going to survive this, we need help. Through their now stronger mental connection, Ember communicated clearly. The Emperor was reluctant to bring colonists into danger. These were innocent people who owed nothing to a dragon ruler they had never met. They owe you nothing, Marcus agreed, but they hate bullies, and those warriors have been treating everyone here like dirt. Give me 1 hour. Marcus drove back to the colony, this time openly. He went straight to Chen's store, where a group of miners and traders had gathered. These were tough people who had survived claim jumpers, equipment failures, and the harsh environment of Rusthaven. They looked up as Marcus entered. I need to tell you all something, Marcus began. He explained everything. The crash, helping Ember, discovering the Emperor's identity, and the assassination plot. He told them about the corrupt council members who betrayed their own ruler and sent killers to finish the job. Why should we care about dragon politics? Asked Graves, a grizzled miner with cybernetic arms. Because those warriors out there aren't going to leave, Marcus said. They know someone here helped the Emperor. Even if they don't find Ember, they'll punish this colony. They'll shut down our mining operations, seize our resources. Maybe worse. We're witnesses to their crime now. Chen spoke up. Marcus is right. I've been listening to their communications. They're planning to declare this colony a hostile zone. They'll arrest anyone they think might have information. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Their lives here, everything they had built, would be destroyed. What's your plan? Graves asked Marcus. We make it too expensive for them to win, Marcus replied. We fortify the colony, set traps, and we help the Emperor signal for his loyal forces. If we can hold out long enough, the real Imperial fleet will arrive, and these traitors will have to answer for what they've done. It was a desperate plan, but desperate was all they had. Over the next 6 hours, Rusthaven transformed. Graves and his mining crew rigged explosive charges in the approaches to the colony, hidden under the dust where scanners wouldn't detect them easily. Other colonists positioned drilling equipment as makeshift weapons, their industrial lasers capable of cutting through armor. Marcus worked on modified EMP devices, using parts from broken mining drones to create pulse generators. Chen coordinated communications, setting up a secure network so everyone could stay in contact. She also managed supplies, making sure everyone had water, food and medical kits ready. Ember stayed in the tunnels, but moved closer to the colony, positioning in a chamber that had multiple exits. The Emperor used what strength had returned to enhance defenses with telepathic shields at key locations. Marcus could feel Ember's presence in his mind, stronger now, almost like having a second set of senses. The Emperor was preparing for battle. The warriors attacked at sunset. Their ships came in fast, weapons blazing. They expected easy victory against primitive colonists. Instead, the first 3 ships hit the hidden minefield. Explosions ripped through the air, and 2 ships crashed while the third retreated with heavy damage. Ground forces came next. 20 warriors in combat armor, armed with energy weapons and confident in their superiority. They advanced on the colony in formation, shields raised. Marcus waited until they were in range, then activated the first EMP pulse. The electromagnetic wave washed over the warriors, and their armor sparked and died. Shields failed. Weapons stopped working. The warriors stood confused for just a moment. That moment was enough. Miners opened fire with their industrial equipment. Drilling lasers cut through the air, forcing warriors to scatter and take cover. Graves led a team with cutting torches and mining charges, turning the battle into close-quarters chaos where the warriors' training mattered less. The lead warrior, the red-scale one who had threatened Marcus, pushed through the fences with raw strength and fury. He was heading straight for Marcus's workshop, probably guessing that the human mechanic was the key to finding the Emperor. Marcus stood in the doorway of his shop, holding a plasma cutter in one hand and a homemade shield generator in the other. The warrior laughed at the sight. "You think your toys can stop me, human?" "No," Marcus said calmly. "But he can." Ember emerged from the tunnel entrance behind the workshop. The Emperor's wing, the one Marcus had repaired, spread wide. It wasn't perfect and it probably hurt, but it held. The membrane caught the light of the setting suns, and for the first time since the crash, Ember looked truly magnificent. The Emperor launched into the air, wings beating powerfully. Fire erupted from Ember's mouth, not at the warriors but into the sky, a signal that could be seen for miles. It was a declaration and a challenge. The rightful Emperor was here, and the traitors would face justice. The red-scaled warriors stared up in shock and growing fear. Other colonists emerged from cover, surrounding the remaining warriors. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned. High above the planet, new ships began to appear in orbit, larger vessels, marked with the true Imperial seal. Commander VYXRA's loyal fleet had finally found their missing Emperor. The loyal Imperial fleet descended like avenging angels. Commander VYXRA's flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything the colonists had ever seen, took position directly above Rust Haven. Smaller ships quickly surrounded the traitor warriors' vessels, cutting off any chance of escape. The red-scaled warrior dropped his weapon. Around him, his fellow assassins did the same. They had failed, and they knew the penalty for treason against the Emperor was death. Marcus watched as Imperial guards, wearing armor that gleamed with authentic royal markings, landed and began taking the traitors into custody. Commander VYXRA herself landed near Marcus's workshop. She was smaller than Ember, but carried herself with military precision. Her scales were silver blue, and her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She approached Emperor Scartherax and immediately bowed low, her wings spread in a gesture of deep respect. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "we have searched every system. When you disappeared during the diplomatic mission, we feared the worst. The Council claimed you had abandoned your duties, but I never believed their lies." Ember's response came as both spoken words and telepathic communication that somehow Marcus could now understand. "You remained loyal VYXRA when others betrayed me. The Council wanted my throne, and were willing to murder me to take it. But they failed, thanks to this human." All eyes turned to Marcus. He suddenly felt very small and very aware that he was covered in dust, blood, and grease. His ribs still hurt from being thrown from his vehicle, and he probably looked terrible. VYXIRA approached him, studying him with curiosity. "A human saved the Emperor of the Draconid Imperium? How?" "I just fixed a broken wing," Marcus said simply. "Same as I'd fix any broken thing that came into my shop." This answer seemed to surprise VYXIRA more than anything else she had heard. Over the next few days, Rust Haven was transformed. Imperial medical teams arrived with technology that seemed like magic to the colonists. Injured miners who had fought in the battle were healed completely within hours. Chen's destroyed store was rebuilt with materials stronger and better than anything she could have afforded before. The entire colony received new power generators, water purification systems, and communication equipment. Ember's wing was treated by the Imperial doctors, though they were amazed at Marcus's repair work. Crude but effective, one doctor told him. You used ship repair techniques on living tissue and somehow made it work. The Emperor would have died without this intervention. On the 5th day after the battle, a formal ceremony was held in the colony square. The entire population gathered, along with dozens of Imperial officials who had arrived to witness this historic moment. Marcus stood uncomfortably in new clothes that Chen had insisted he wear, wishing he could just go back to his workshop. Emperor Scarthrax addressed the assembled crowd in a voice that resonated with power and authority. The Draconid Imperium has existed for 10,000 years. In all that time, we have considered ourselves superior to younger races. We have looked down on species like humanity, dismissing them as primitive and unworthy of our attention. The Emperor paused, those golden eyes finding Marcus in the crowd. I have learned that strength is not measured only in power or technology. This human, Marcus Webb, showed me compassion when I was helpless. He risked his life to protect mine, expecting nothing in return. The people of this colony stood against trained warriors to defend someone they barely knew, simply because it was right. Ember stepped forward, and the crowd parted. The Emperor approached Marcus directly. I offer you titles, wealth, and a position in my court. You could live in palaces and want for nothing. Name your reward, Marcus Webb, and it shall be yours. Marcus thought about it. He really did. He imagined living in those crystal palaces he had seen in Ember's telepathic visions, never having to work another day, surrounded by luxury. But that wasn't who he was. Thank you, Your Majesty, Marcus said respectfully, but I'm just mechanic. I help because someone needed help. I don't need a reward for doing what's right. The silence that followed was profound. VYXIRA looked shocked. The Imperial officials whispered among themselves. Even the colonists seemed surprised. Ember studied Marcus for a long moment, then did something no one expected. The Emperor bowed to Marcus, wings spread in the same gesture of deep respect that VYXIRA had shown earlier. Then I name you Wing Brother, Ember declared. A title never given to one outside our species, but earned through actions that prove you worthy. You and this colony are under permanent Imperial protection. Any who threaten you threaten me personally. The Emperor then addressed the wider crowd. Let it be known throughout the Imperium. Humanity has proven themselves worthy of respect and friendship. From this day forward, they shall be recognized as equals, not subjects. And it is Marcus Webb of Rust Haven who showed us this truth. Months passed. The traitors on the council were arrested and faced justice. New council members, carefully vetted for loyalty, were appointed. The political situation stabilized, and Emperor Scarthrax's rule was secured more firmly than ever. Rust Haven became famous across both human and Draconid space. The small colony that had been forgotten backwater was now a symbol of cooperation between species. Traders came from everywhere, and the colony prospered. Marcus's workshop was rebuilt with a combination of human and Draconid technology. It was still small, still messy, but now it had the best equipment money could buy. He continued fixing things, because that was what he loved doing. One afternoon, Marcus was working on a mining drone when he heard the sound of wings. He looked up to see a young Draconid landing awkwardly near his shop. The dragon's left wing was bent at an angle that made Marcus wince. "Are you Marcus Webb?" the young dragon asked nervously. "The one who heals wings?" Marcus smiled and wiped his hands on a rag. "I'm the one who fixes broken things. Let me take a look." As he examined the injury, Marcus noticed several more ships landing in the distance. Word had spread across the Imperium about the human mechanic with the magic touch. Dragons were coming to Rust Haven seeking his help, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. He looked up at the sky, where Ember's flagship occasionally passed in orbit. The Emperor visited when duties allowed, and they had become genuine friends. Marcus had learned that beneath all the royal authority was someone who valued honesty and loyalty above everything else. "All right," Marcus said to the young dragon, rolling up his sleeves. "This will take a few hours, but I can fix it. Just try to relax." As he worked, Marcus reflected on how strange his life had become. He was still just a mechanic on a dusty colony world. But now he was also a bridge between civilizations, proof that kindness and skill mattered more than species or status. And really, that was reward enough.